Hmm. I think we're live. Let me double check. Okay, that one's going. This one, maybe? Here we go. Oh, are they in? There we go. Smiley Brandon 21. Thank you. Appreciate that. Where are we at? Oh no. Oh, that's so annoying. Hang on. I don't think the chat is on the right one. Let me swap this. Okay. That might just be annoying. Hello, everyone. How we doing? Hello, Mips. Hello, Sally. Nomo, Olmo. How's it going? Jake. Hello, hello. Just trying to sort out the chat. For some reason, it's not coming up on the thing. See if I can change it quick. Toyota has dominance can bore. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I feel like Haas are on an absolute one, though, aren't they? Like, that is the thing at the moment. Haas are just flying. But this is annoying me because for some reason the chat is doing chat things. Okay. See if I can fix this. Maybe now? Oh, it doesn't work. I'm trying a new setup for the stream, hence a little bit of a delay in the last couple of streams. There we go. Bada bing. Now we've got the stream. Now we've got the right chat for the right thing. We're there. Oh, right. Should we get into it then? Thank goodness that is done. Oh, hang on. Let me save that as well. Oh, I don't know if saving it is actually just breaking it. Good. Do that again. There we go. Oh, goodness gracious. The technical difficulties that I've had in the last couple of streams have been ridiculous. But we're there now, I feel. I'm trying out a new concept, and you guys can let me know. So those of you that are on desktop and watching like horizontal should be able to find the stream on the channel horizontally. But also for those of you guys that watch in the shorts feed, rather than it now being like a horizontal one, either tilted or whatever, it should be its own shorts style thing. So if you're watching on mobile and you want to watch in vertical rather than in horizontal, you can do that now too. I will quickly see if that is working. Looks like it's working. I'm going to take their word for it and see how it gets on. Lovely. Shall we get into it? What's the weather there in Interlagos at the moment? That is a great question. Let me load up my stream because it was very grey. Like in the free practice session and obviously sprint qualifying session that we had yesterday, it was very, very dark throughout. It did feel like the rain was threatening to come, but never truly did. So we got a little bit lucky. What's the track in my background? Is indeed Singapore. I feel like that's like a good quiz question. If I were to ever do like a quiz of the channel, like, everyone seems to be attracted to the Singapore Grand Prix when it's in the background. But we are getting into the sprint race itself, first and foremost this afternoon. We're back live again a little bit later on for the actual qualifying. But sprint qualifying yesterday was pretty interesting. Should we have a little look at the grid before we get into it? So in terms of qualifying yesterday, Oscar Piastri was the fastest man out on track in the McLaren. Lando Norris just behind him. That brand new rear wing. I know it's like the 12th or 13th rear wing that McLaren have brought this season, but that rear wing looking very, very tidy for them indeed. And seems to have jumped them back up the order a little bit, because it has been Ferrari for the last 4 or 5 Grand Prix, you would say. I'd say Ferrari have been the best team out on track. But this time around, McLaren look like they are in the top spots once again and ready and raring to go. Charles Leclerc, though, just behind in 3rd place. Max Verstappen in 4th. Now, remember, Max Verstappen does have a 5-place grid penalty, but that doesn't apply for the sprint. So the 5-place grid penalty will be applied for the Grand Prix tomorrow. And therefore, Max Verstappen still starting in 4th for the sprint race. But say he qualified 4th in the actual qualifying session a little bit later on today, he would then start from 9th in tomorrow's Grand Prix. So that 5-place grid penalty for Max only for the Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz starts in 5th place for the sprint with George Russell beside him in 6th. Those kind of top 6 where you'd expect them to be, I would say. Missing 2 big names there. Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez dropped out a little bit further down the grid. We'll get to them in a moment, but they're missing outside of the traditional top 8, which has meant Pierre Gasly and Liam Lawson are the 2 midfield drivers that have inherited points scoring positions for the sprint race today. Remember, the top 8 drivers score points in the sprint race. And then beyond that, Alex Albon and Ollie Behrman were the 2 drivers that got into SQ3, but are not starting inside the point scoring places. Alex Albon in 9th and Ollie Behrman in 10th. Ollie Behrman now confirmed to be taking part the entire weekend. So it was, first of all, said by Haas that Ollie Behrman would likely take part in just free practice 1, sprint qualifying, and the sprint race. And then Kevin Magnussen would come back into the car for qualifying in the Grand Prix. That has now been kiboshed. And they have said that actually Ollie Behrman is just going to get the whole weekend. So unfortunately, we're not going to get to see Kevin Magnussen in the Grand Prix this weekend, which is a real shame, because Kevin Magnussen obviously got his pole position here in Brazil. It is his final season in Formula One for definite this time, it feels like. I know we kind of said that the last time that he left Haas, but I can't see Kevin Magnussen getting himself a spot anywhere else in the future. He's that little bit older. I do think that this is the end of Kevin Magnussen. And yeah, just a shame that he's not going to be able to take part in the Brazilian Grand Prix, because it would have been fun to see him, and it would have been fun to see what he could have achieved in that Haas car, considering he has had a ridiculous amount of pace in the last few Grand Prix weekends. But Ollie Behrman, nonetheless, also came in, was super quick yesterday in sprint qualifying. I think that's been one of the things that Haas have maybe factored in. I think they were cautious at first, saying, well, we'll get Kevin back in for the real qualifying, the real Grand Prix, that kind of thing. But actually, Behrman came in, looked really comfortable inside the car, put together some really, really solid laps. Messed up his SQ3 lap, to be fair, because I think if you'd have taken his SQ2 time and then maybe, adjusted it, maybe given him a couple attempts or so because they swapped onto the soft compound tyre, if he'd have done that, he'd have qualified probably, definitely at the front of that pack, and even near George Russell's time. So Ollie Behrman, one to watch when it comes to this sprint, but also in qualifying later on today as well. And outside of the top 10, Lewis Hamilton starts in 11th place. A frustrating Friday for Lewis Hamilton. I remember he came out of FP1 complaining that he was in a little bit of pain. I don't know if that continued into sprint qualifying as well, but wasn't very happy with the setup of the car. Couldn't really find the balance of it. And unfortunately for Hamilton, especially in a track that he absolutely loves, starting in 11th place today, needs to improve later on in the qualifying to get back up into the points, really, and a bit closer to George Russell, his teammate. Nico Hülkenberg starts in 12th place. Again, a little bit of a weird one. Was expecting Nico Hülkenberg to be in and amongst the guys in the top 10. Has been for the majority of the season, has Nico, but unfortunately, just a little bit off the pace yesterday in SQ2, dropped down in 12th. Sergio Perez, 13th, the fastest. Obviously, he's made the excuse that in the last couple of weekends, his His chassis hasn't been quite right. He hasn't been able to trust the car going into the braking zones, etc., etc. They've changed that chassis now. I think he's also got the new floor coming in Las Vegas, so he's going to be on the same package as Max Verstappen for the Las Vegas Grand Prix weekend. The excuses are running out for Sergio Perez, and it was another 13th place qualification. Colapinto behind him in 14th place. Valtteri Bottas in 15th. Valtteri Bottas has been talking quite a lot this weekend about his future. He was asked about that Mercedes move being a possibility. Didn't completely rule it out. So I do feel like that Mercedes reserve driver seat for Valtteri Bottas is certainly an option moving forwards. But then we've got, beyond that, the drivers that dropped out in SQ1, Esteban Ocon in 16th place, 17th place Yuki Tsunoda, Fernando Alonso in 18th place, Lance Stroll in 19th, and Zhou Guanyu at the back of the pack. So that was what qualifying had for us yesterday. You can see the Senna colours in the grandstand there, the Brazil colours really, of course, as well. And Lewis Hamilton actually driving Senna's old Formula One car a little bit later on today as well. So well worth watching for that, just to see Lewis Hamilton in that Senna car, to see what kind of performance he can find in the old school machinery. Beyond that, we've obviously got the qualifying later on today as well, and the Grand Prix tomorrow. So if you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. And even if you're not new, hit that like button for me. It really does massively help out these streams and help out the channel. But 24 laps of Sao Paulo to come. And there is Ollie Behrman, the man who is stepping in for the full weekend. Let's have a little look at some of your guys' questions coming through in the chat. Is Perez planning to move to IndyCar or Formula E? Because his time in Formula One is already up. Horribly qualifying. I don't know what Sergio Perez will be looking at for the future. That's the talking point has been obviously Liam Lawson going into that seat alongside Max Verstappen, and whether or not Liam Lawson is good enough. I mean, he's doing pretty well in terms of qualifying and scoring points over the 3 races, or the 3 race weekends that he's had so far since taking over from Daniel Ricciardo. So I could see that happening. But it would then be what happens to Sergio Perez. Does he go to that Steak Sauber seat? I don't think so. That's being linked to Bortoletto. Does he drop into the RB setup? I don't think so, because again, they're talking with Colapinto to try and fill up that seat. Does look like Sergio Perez would be looking elsewhere if he were to leave Red Bull and drop out of Formula One. I feel like IndyCar would kind of make sense. You know, can go over that American link, be a little bit closer to home in Mexico. Let's see. Nate, you were my brother's teacher. I mean, maybe that could happen. Is Franco better than Liam? So difficult to tell. I really want to see a little battle between those two, to be honest. I really want to see an opportunity where those two are on the same bit of track, on similar tyres, like similar pace, and just see actually who has got the better of one another. Because I think it's pretty close to kind of judge them. They're getting close to being similar in terms of races. Obviously, Liam Lawson at the end of the season will have 11 races to his name. Colapinto will have 9 races to his name, as long as they finish all of the races that we've got left. So 4 more Grand Prix left this season. So they're pretty similar in terms of where they've been, in terms of how many races they've competed in. They'll also be similar kind of points, right? Ollie Behrman picked up a Liam Lawson picked up a couple of points last time around, I want to say, during his 5-race stint. Was it only Singapore where he scored points? I think so. And then, obviously, he's picked up another couple of points. Colapinto's picked up 4 points so far, so they're basically identical in terms of points scored. I think possibly identical, exactly. 4 points apiece in terms of points scored in Formula One across those 2 stints for Liam Lawson and across the 9 races that Colapinto is going to get. So they're pretty evenly matched at the moment. We've never seen them obviously in the same machinery, so that's always a bit of a tricky one. But I feel like Red Bull would back Liam Lawson to go straight into that Max Verstappen seat, just because he's been in and around the Red Bull setup for a bit longer. Then Colapinto go into the RB seat, and you never know with Red Bull. They're willing to swap drivers around. We saw it with Gasly and Albon, you know. We saw it with Daniel Ricciardo and Nick de Vries. They are willing to swap drivers around. So if Colapinto came into that RB seat and started outperforming Liam Lawson, they wouldn't hesitate in swapping those two around. So Colapinto should take the Red Bull. See, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like they'd go Lawson into the top team first, and then if it went really, really well for Colapinto at RB, there's always that opportunity to swap them about a bit. Does Lando have a chance to win this year? Well, as Lando Norris said himself, he's kind of sick and tired of these questions. No, I think 47 points is a lot. I think we always said after sort of the August break that we had, we kind of said, okay, we'll have these 3 races. So Austin, Mexico, Brazil, and then we'll readdress it after that. I feel like Lando has closed the gap a touch, obviously down to 47 points now. If he can manage, so Lando Norris, let's say he can manage to get another 15 points on Verstappen this weekend, which I know is a tall order. But if he can get another 15 points on the board, then maybe that would take down to 32 points with 3 races to go and a sprint. So he'd still need like 10 points effectively per race, plus a couple in the sprint race. He needs to get into the 30s, I would say, going into the final 3 Grand Prix weekends, does Lando Norris, to be still within talking distance. He's not really within touching distance. It would be a huge swing. It would be the biggest swing in Formula 1 history if Lando Norris were to be able to close that gap. Going down to the wire in Abu Dhabi, I feel like is perfectly reasonable. Obviously, he has to be within 25 points, technically, for it to actually go all the way down to Abu Dhabi. So that could happen, because that's only a 22-point swing from now. So 3 Grand Prix, 22-point swing. But it's getting towards the point where I'm less and less confident in it happening. I feel like we needed a bigger point swing a few races ago. J-Bone, I've reached out to J-Bone a couple of times. He's never responded. I feel like he's very guarded man. Guarded, is that the word? Maybe. Talk about Piastri's potential, especially with today's poll. I mean, likely that if we get towards the last few corners of the race and Piastri is still in first and Lando Norris in second, he might get that driver swap. Obviously, it's been discussed at McLaren a good few times whether or not they should swap positions, whether or not Piastri should have let Lando win in Hungary, should have let Lando have an easier time of it in Monza. So I feel like Piastri, even if he is the fastest man out on track, he's kind of got that to deal with anyway. So there's so much that could go in his favor and so much not. Yeah, exactly. I think Sally's nailed it on the head. There's so many variables still to play out. It's impossible to say yes or no completely, but you can definitely look at what's more likely and less likely. And we're certainly at the point of the season now where it is less likely that Lando Norris wins the championship over Max Verstappen than Max Verstappen being able to hold on to it. What do you have to tell about Ferrari's pace on the straights? I mean, just Ferrari's pace in general has been brilliant over the last few weekends. I don't know what you want for me to add in the fact that they've won 3 out of the last 5 Grand Prix, have gone to a Ferrari driver. Charles Leclerc, a couple of wins there, obviously in Monza, and not Azerbaijan, in Austin, and then Carlos Sainz's win in Mexico. So Ferrari is very, very good. Like, very, very good. Does the sprint start at 2? It does indeed. We're at 5 minutes away from the start of the sprint. So if you could hit the like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. Hit that subscribe button as well. I would massively, massively appreciate it. And it would do the world of good for me and the channel if you could do. Then if you want to support the channel even more so, you can become a member or a Patreon down in the description as well. Or maybe just have one of my videos open in the background, you know, let it play through. You open up the link in the description again to one of the videos, just 5 minutes or so before it starts. More than enough time to squidge in a video, maybe on 2 times speed. Think Max has done enough? Yeah, I agree. I think Max Verstappen has done just about enough. Should we get into some predictions for today then? Has anybody got some wild predictions for the sprint race? I think I normally ask for your guys' predictions for the Grand Prix when it comes to that. So we'll talk about those a little bit more. If you want to get your predictions in for the Grand Prix, you can get them in over on the community tab. So if you want to head over there and get those in, you definitely can. But then on the flip side of things, if you want to obviously get your predictions in for now, I do think McLaren are going to have a little bit too much. I'd like to see Carlos Sainz get in front of Max Verstappen and Ferrari kind of be second best overall with a third and a fourth place. Maybe even George Russell getting ahead of Max Verstappen, just doing Lando Norris a couple of favors here and there. I think in the end, we'll see Lando Norris take the lead from Oscar Piastri if they stay kind of 1-2. And then in terms of struggles and flops, I mean, it's looking like Aston Martin are going to have an absolutely torrid weekend. Starting from the pit lane, can't really see them doing much, can you? They were so far off the pace, Aston Martin. And we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday after the sprint qualifying because people were wondering like what's happened to Aston Martin. I do just feel like they're in a bit of a lull. Like if you look at the Constructors' Championship, the Drivers' Championship, either way around, like they've got nothing to play for. Like fifth in the Constructors' Championship, they're not going to be caught by Haas. As much as Haas have been ridiculously good in the last few races, they're not scoring 40 points anytime soon. And it's the same thing like the other way. Aston Martin, they could do they could win all of the races. They could get 1-2 in every single Grand Prix for the rest of the season. They're still not catching Mercedes above them. So there's literally nothing to play for Aston Martin at the moment. So I can understand why they're a little bit off the pace and maybe why they're on the beach a little bit for the rest of the season. And you could say the same. I know that technically Lance Stroll could, bump up into the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda might be able to jump in front of Lance Stroll, although it's looking unlikely. Like that Lance Stroll battle, I don't think they're really that bothered about. And Fernando Alonso, again, could win every single Grand Prix. He's not going to win the championship. Okay, he might move in front of Sergio Perez, technically, if he got, 100 and... He would get 100 points for the Grand Prix, 16 points for the sprints, so he's got 120 points. So he could move ahead of Sergio Perez, technically, could Fernando Alonso, but unlikely at this point. So it makes sense that at this point in the season, Aston Martin have got absolutely nothing to play for, and therefore are not too worried about going into putting an obscene amount of effort and resources into upgrading the car or trying to make it faster for this season. I think Aston Martin have solely got their focus on 2026. And I know that the regulations for 2026 haven't been fully confirmed yet, and there's still bits to come in terms of 2026, but I feel like they've already got their eyes on 2026 pretty firm. Is there a sprint stream without commentators so I can hear you better? I think you could, you could just mute things. Does Tsunoda 0 points in the last 6 race weekends? Had a pretty unlucky time of it though, as Yuki Tsunoda too. Yuki Tsunoda does seem to, at this point in the season, like the car kind of gives up on him a little bit. Like doesn't quite work in the same way that it does, and I feel like Tsunoda does just open the season a lot better. There's like 2 or 3 seasons in a row now where Yuki Tsunoda started pretty well, gone really well, and then dropped off when it came to sort of his full potential, I guess, when it goes forwards. Norris, Piastri, Sainz podium. Ooh. So what are they going to do for 2025? Similar. I feel like lots of teams are just going to tread water in 2025, honestly, especially the teams that don't need the money. So like Haas, for instance, it's great for Haas that they can move up in the Constructors' Championship because they can get some more money. And other teams like Williams need the money too, but Aston Martin don't need the finances. Like they're not that bothered about where they finish in the Constructor standings at this point. They're more excited about what's to come in 2026 than actually worrying about what really goes on in 2025. We are about to get underway, though. Let's get to our more... Oh, no, that's the quali one. The more detailed race board for ourselves. Quickly move this track map. There we go. make that fit a little bit better. There we go. We are on the formation lap. The sprint is getting underway. My play button looks gold. I think it's just the orange light that is on it. It's unfortunately not a gold one. Not yet. One day. But we are about to get underway in the sprint race itself. We've got Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, the other way around, at the front of the pack. Piastri starting at the top of the field, just coming around turn 10. Yuki Tsunoda is going to be at the back of the pack of drivers that are starting on the grid. Both of the Aston Martins and Zhou Guanyu deciding to start from the pit lane after a pretty dismal qualifying session yesterday. So they have taken their cars away, reset them for this Grand Prix weekend. So basically, the car's going to park firm conditions. If you want to work on them, you have to then start from the pit lane. And Aston Martin deciding, yeah, it's well worth us starting from the pit lane because hopefully they'll then be able to fix a few things that will benefit them in the actual qualifying, even if they didn't get those fixes in for the sprint qualifying. But that means that Yuki Tsunoda will be the final man to take his place on the starting grid. The two papaya cars, though, just coming around the final bend towards the start-finish line. Oscar Piastri will take P1, Lando Norris P2, Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen just behind. Verstappen actually leaving a little bit of a gap to Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz and George Russell also slotting in behind the championship leader. Pierre Gasly starting best of the rest in 7th place, with Liam Lawson also joining him in the point-scoring places in 8th. Alex Albon will start in 9th, with Ollie Behrman. A full substitute appearance now for Ollie Behrman has been confirmed that he will be taking on the entire weekend for the Haas team. So no Kevin Magnussen to come, but more Ollie Behrman in qualifying later on today. What can he do from 10th place? And then beyond that, Hamilton taking his spot, Hülkenberg, Perez in 13th, Colapinto 14th. Just seeing Valtteri Bottas come to a stop, Esteban Ocon, and Yuki Tsunoda will be the 17 drivers. The green flag is waved. 3 cars starting from the pit lane, but the 5 red lights, and we're underway for the sprint here in Brazil. Lando Norris gets away well, but so does Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri's come across to cover off Lando Norris. Max Verstappen's trying to go up the inside of Carlos Sainz, is able to do so. No, Charles Leclerc then battles through turn 2 and gets that position back. So Charles Leclerc holds Max Verstappen off for now. Carlos Sainz does really well to hold on to 5th place. Russell, Gasly, Lawson. Lawson under pressure from Albon. Albon and Lawson side by side as they come into it. Is Liam Lawson going to be able to hold on to that position? Just about holds off. And there comes Ollie Behrman up the inside. Nico Hülkenberg is just coming around for the Haas team too. Hülkenberg up into 9th place on an absolute stormer is Nico Hülkenberg. He gets past Alex Albon and up into 9th. Ollie Behrman has dropped down a position to his teammate Lewis Hamilton with an absolutely dreadful start down to 14th place. Sergio Perez makes a move up to 12th and Colapinto up to 13th because of it. The 3 drivers then join from the back of the pack onto the grid. Alonso, Stroll, and Zhou in that order, 18th, 19th, and 20th. So all 20 cars out on track now as we head around towards this finish of the first lap. We still have Oscar Piastri leading from Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc has held on to 3rd place from Verstappen. Under pressure now, though, from the Red Bull. Max Verstappen not giving up on chasing down Charles Leclerc. DRS now enabled on on lap 2. Of this sprint race. 23 laps left to go inside of it, though. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris disappearing up the distance a touch as Max Verstappen is putting Charles Leclerc under pressure, but Charles Leclerc holds him off for enough time. Carlos Sainz and George Russell also falling away in 5th and 6th. You can see the gaps there between the drivers falling away. We've got Charles Leclerc a second or so off the back of Oscar Piastri. And already Carlos Sainz outside of DRS range of Verstappen. Oh, no, just getting back inside of it. Hülkenberg and Behrman then having swapped positions in the Haas's. We're just watching them come around. Hülkenberg has actually got up into 9th place. A really solid start from Nico Hülkenberg. Sort of blitzed around the outside of Albon. Behrman has also gotten past Albon as well. So both of the Hasses have dropped Alex Albon outside of the top 10. Liam Lawson and Pierre Gasly, though, have been the two drivers that have been able to hold on to their point-scoring places in this sprint race. And here goes Max Verstappen with DRS. Is he going to have a look around the outside of turn one? Tries his best on Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc holds on to third place. And Leclerc now, the man who is really under pressure from the Red Bull. They're going to race down towards turn four. Verstappen's going to go up the inside of turn four. Looks to lunge, but doesn't get the move done. Charles Leclerc closes the door on the championship leader, and the Dutchman has to wait in fourth place once more. Carlos Sainz is trying to catch up to the back of these two, but you can see he has dropped a couple of seconds behind fourth place Verstappen. George Russell actually putting Carlos Sainz under pressure, but under pressure himself. Pierre Gasly trying to make his way past George Russell. Doesn't quite. George Russell under the cosh a little bit here. Lewis Hamilton has dropped all the way down to 14th place, his teammate, and doesn't look like he's going to be making any moves forwards anytime soon. Max Verstappen on the radio, just being told to take his time. GP reminding Max Verstappen that this is the long game. We've still got a good few chunk of laps to go. Oscar Piastri comes across the line. Lando Norris was fastest. Charles Leclerc now fastest of anybody out on track with a 1:11.9. Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Gasly and Lawson, the other cars in the points. Hulkenberg barreling down on Liam Lawson now, trying to put the RB driver under pressure. That final points place is up for grabs. And let's have a little look. There's a replay of the start finally. Let's have a look at what happened to Lewis Hamilton here. I think Lewis Hamilton seemed okay. Then Sergio Perez. Perez tried to get up the inside. The two Hasses, really solid start from both of the Haas cars. And then Sergio Perez was able to also pick Lewis Hamilton's pocket. And then he's on the outside of the corner. So Hamilton just unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time for a lot of that. Big lockup from Max Verstappen going into turn one. Slides into turn one, and that's why he was able to get up alongside Charles Leclerc was Verstappen, but Leclerc then got the better of him through turn two. Is there a fastest lap point for the sprint? No, there is not. There is not. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris just continuing to go on. Keeping Lando Norris at bay, but inside of DRS range to make sure that Leclerc and Verstappen can't get at the back of Lando Norris anytime soon. Charles Leclerc just fastest of anybody at the moment out on track, but is just outside DRS range. So dodging in and out. And Lando Norris, I'm close. So Lando Norris saying to the team effectively, can I have the run at it, please? Am I able to get past Oscar Piastri sooner rather than later? What's going on for Alex Albon? Lost a lot of time. Yeah, he has actually. He's just dropped back another position. I mean, he has dropped behind Sergio Perez, so you'd feel like the lap time difference between Perez and Albon should be fairly substantial with Sergio Perez in a Red Bull, but even so, Alex Albon starting in the top 10, of course, got caught out a little bit by Nico Hulkenberg at the beginning of the race, so lost a couple of positions because of that, but then also has now dropped behind Sergio Perez as well and falling away in that Williams car. Has been very windy here in Brazil. That would be my sort of... Ooh. And Lando Norris just being told on the radio to just wait a little while because we're a little bit worried of Charles Leclerc behind at the moment. So the McLaren team just wanted to get both of their cars away from the Ferrari before they decide to make any kind of swap. But yeah, that would be my guess. Been very windy in Brazil. And it is kind of, the circuit kind of sits in a bit of a canyon almost. So it does get very windy. You do get a little bit of a weird weather when it comes to the Brazilian Grand Prix, and therefore doesn't really suit the Williams car massively, the fluctuating conditions. Piastri and Norris then have now escaped outside of DRS range, so Charles Leclerc, no more DRS for the Ferrari. Max Verstappen has just gone fastest of anybody out on track. Lando Norris. Not sure what I'm doing here, mate. Saying that they want to get this done. They're saying that they spoke about it. I'm sure they did. Piastri is going to have to move out of the way of Lando Norris at some point. Lando Norris is now getting frustrated on the radio at his teammate. Lando Norris also is actually dropping outside of DRS range of his teammate and dropping into the clutches of Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc now within a second of Norris. Norris seemed to have had a pretty poor middle sector and now is outside DRS range, so does not have the DRS to Oscar Piastri, and Piastri hasn't dropped back to help his teammate at all, so Lando Norris could be under pressure here from Charles Leclerc. Leclerc coming around turn 1 and turn 2, the DRS open on the Ferrari. It'll be down towards turn 4 that Leclerc might be able to make a move as he was within that touching distance of him. 0.7 of a second the gap, although Charles Leclerc's also got to be a bit wary of Max Verstappen behind as Verstappen gets closer and closer to the back of the Ferrari car as we enter lap 8 of this Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri now a second and a half ahead of his teammate. Norris on the radio. Keep doing what you're doing. And Lando Norris frustrated. And Piastri is sort of proven that he is quick enough to win this. Lando Norris 1.2 seconds adrift. Outside of that DRS range, Charles Leclerc is a little bit closer still. Charles Leclerc now 0.6 of a second behind Lando Norris. And that's only going to close up because of that DRS advantage. You can see the DRS open on the Ferrari car. That's going to close into 0.4 of a second as they come through turn 1. And Max Verstappen is right there too. So Lando Norris is now under threat of not only Leclerc, but also Verstappen. Going back a few positions, Sergio Perez is having a look at the back of the two Haas cars as Ollie Behrman is trying to fight his way past Nico Hülkenberg. But that's also opened the door to Sergio Perez getting involved as well. Ollie Behrman with DRS right behind his teammate for the weekend, Nico Hülkenberg. Sergio Perez is going to dart up the inside though and catch Nico Hülkenberg sleeping, and Hülkenberg, after a solid start from Nico Hülkenberg, Ollie Behrman's back ahead of his teammate, and Nico Hülkenberg has also lost out to Sergio Perez. So Hülkenberg now down into 11th place. And Ollie Behrman, 2.3 seconds off the back of Liam Lawson, so still a couple of seconds away from a point-scoring place. Pierre Gasly and Liam Lawson have held on to those point-scoring positions fairly comfortably so far. George Russell disappearing up the road from them. Carlos Sainz also in a little bit of a no-man's land in 5th place. And Oscar Piastri on the radio being told to give Lando DRS. So Oscar Piastri being told to just drop back a little bit and help Lando Norris out a little bit. And Lando Norris does now have DRS. So is able to defend a little bit more comfortably from Charles Leclerc behind. And Lando Norris now still under pressure from Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc's not dropped off the back of the McLaren ridiculously. He can still 0.6 of a second off the back of Lando Norris. And the medium compound tyres are going to start to feel a little bit slippery for those guys out on track over the next few laps. But Charles and Max are right behind the two McLaren cars. As I was just saying before, Carlos Sainz and George Russell kind of in a little bit of a no-man's land race this time around. Carlos Sainz not with the pace to catch up to the top 4 and keep himself in that battle. So he's just coming around turn 14 now. And then a big gap once again for George Russell in 6th. So those two pretty much guaranteed to stay where they are. Here's that replay of the move from Ollie Behrman on Nico Hülkenberg. And Behrman just going up the inside at turn 1, then put Hulkenberg out of position slightly, which allowed Sergio Perez to also get the jump on the Haas car. So Hulkenberg actually dropped down to 11th in all of that. Sergio Perez now all over the rear wing of Ollie Behrman. Obviously, came to blows with Liam Lawson last time around, did Sergio Perez. Another rookie in front of him, this time in Ollie Behrman. See what the battle is like there. Sergio Perez going to go for the move. Does go for the move. And Perez up into 9th place for Red Bull. So now one more point scoring place is looking like it might go towards a Red Bull powered car. But Liam Lawson ahead would be a swap of Red Bull powered cars in terms of the points. Looking at it right now, Lando Norris still under pressure from Charles Leclerc. And just sort of right on the balance. Wets now. I think that would very much change the complexion of the race, to be fair. Do we have to pit during a sprint? No. Don't have to pit during a sprint race. Wow. Lap 12. Nearly halfway through this sprint race then. Lando Norris still under pressure, but able to just about do what he needs to do. Keep Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen behind, but also on the radio, asking once more about that position swap. Sergio Perez then trying to get up into the point scoring places, but is still 1.2 seconds adrift of Liam Lawson. Catching him fairly rapidly, though, is Sergio Perez to try and get into that final point scoring place. The one Red Bull powered car swapping for another, but I don't think Liam Lawson is going to take the option to give that position over to Sergio Perez, who has now put himself inside DRS range of Liam Lawson. Max Verstappen now looking at the back of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc has dropped outside of DRS range of the McLarens in front. So Verstappen getting right up under the rear wing of Charles Leclerc, but not able to do it this time around. Max Verstappen getting closer and closer. Charles Leclerc now outside of DRS range by a considerable margin. 1.5 seconds the gap between Norris and Leclerc. And whenever he drops outside of that DRS range, does mean that Max Verstappen is there to pounce. Max Verstappen still with the fastest lap of anybody, showing that that Red Bull car does have pace here this weekend in Interlagos. And Verstappen on the radio. Charles Leclerc not very happy with Charles making mistakes because he wants to get up towards the top two, does Max Verstappen, but can't get past Charles Leclerc. Here he is once again then. Verstappen right underneath the rear wing of Charles Leclerc coming through turn 2 and turn 3. Can Max Verstappen mount an attack this time? No DRS for Charles Leclerc once again to the McLarens in front. But Verstappen not close enough this time around. We're getting very close indeed. And Lando Norris also within half a second of Piastri. You'd think if there was an opportunity to swap drivers, it would be now. With Charles Leclerc outside of DRS range, but Charles Leclerc is now closing in on the McLarens once more. Charles Leclerc does have the pace in that Ferrari car to match the McLarens, it seems, this weekend. So the tyres, though, are starting to fall off. Remember, a lot of these medium tyres, used medium tyres from sprint qualifying yesterday. Teams holding on to the fresh sets of tyres for the full Grand Prix, but it does mean that these tyres are now just under a lot of stress. And they are going to be going off in the final 10 laps of this sprint race. Lawson now, under pressure from Sergio Perez. Going to be wheel to wheel again between those two. Sergio Perez is going to try and make the move. And Sergio Perez, I think, has got it done. Perez up in front of Liam Lawson. And Sergio Perez down towards turn 4. Gets that position. Is Liam Lawson going to come back at him, maybe? Yes, he does indeed. I think Lawson came back at Sergio Perez and got the position back once more. But Lawson versus Perez, they do love finding each other out on track, don't they? In these last few Grand Prix. Lawson and Perez. Lawson's not making many friends, is he? He's had a little bit of a to and fro with Fernando Alonso. Now also having the same here with Sergio Perez. And Liam Lawson under pressure again. He's actually within touching distance, though, of Gasly. So Lawson has got DRS to help him out. But Charles Leclerc does not still. So Charles Leclerc under pressure from Verstappen. But Verstappen doesn't feel like he's actually within that touching distance. Even with the DRS advantage, Verstappen not able to get close enough to the Ferrari to really make a lunge on him. Lando Norris on the radio once more. And Lando Norris being told we're going to hold position until the last lap. So Piastri, it's going to be a last lap switch if it's going to happen. Will Joseph telling Lando Norris to maintain position until then, as long as they can maintain this gap to Charles Leclerc. I think that's the other thing, right? Charles Leclerc is also all the way at the back there, a second or so behind Lando Norris. But if he can get back within DRS range, starts to get suggest red A4. Lando Norris saying that he will overtake. So maybe we'll see a little battle between Piastri and Norris here. Last lap switch on the radio from Will Joseph, but Lando Norris saying that he's going to try and go for an overtake. Is he going to try and do it before the final lap? Lawson and Perez also having another battle between themselves. Lawson is within DRS range of Pierre Gasly as well. So a real battle for 7th, 8th and 9th. Remember, our point scoring places in the sprint race here. We've got 7th and 8th place. 3 points up for grabs between those two positions. And 9th place, Sergio Perez currently outside of the points. Closing in. And Lando Norris saying that he wanted to go for it, but actually dropping outside of DRS range once again. And Oscar Piastri, I think, just sort of showing that he has got the pace to win this sprint race. Piastri is being told on the radio as well, if Lando attacks, don't make it too messy. But Piastri has sort of taken that and said, well, if Lando's going to be able to attack, I'll put in some fastest laps then. Piastri puts in the fastest lap so far. Lando Norris, no DRS this time around. Here comes Verstappen, though, behind in the back of the picture. And Verstappen's going to go at Leclerc. And Leclerc finally has to concede. Verstappen up in front of the Ferrari. And the Red Bull Garage celebrate Max Verstappen moving up into 3rd place and moving on to the podium scoring positions. 6 points coming Max Verstappen's way if he can remain there. That means Lando Norris would only get a 1 point swing as it stands. If that last lap swap does happen, that would be a 2 point swing. But now Verstappen behind has been released from the back of the Ferrari. It has felt like Verstappen has had more pace than Charles Leclerc in this sprint race. Can Verstappen actually close the gap to Lando Norris? And McLaren now going to find it a little bit tougher to get this swap done, especially if Verstappen is right under the rear wing of Lando Norris. Norris with DRS to Piastri. And Max Verstappen has dropped off the back a little bit. 1.6 seconds, the gap between Norris and Verstappen. I'll keep you updated as to what happens there between those two, because it's getting very tight indeed between the two of them. Wow, that is a super lap from Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc already 1.6 seconds adrift. And Verstappen getting the go-ahead from GP. Let's do it. Let's chase him down. 1.6 seconds the gap to the two McLarens ahead, but the Red Bull team smell blood. Here we go then. Oh, and the tyres are starting to really struggle. You can see that Lando Norris coming around there, just getting all out of shape inside of his McLaren car. The tyres screaming at this point with 5 laps left to go as they come around the final couple of corners. Piastri from Norris still. Piastri on the radio. And Max Verstappen trying to close in, but actually losing time to Norris. So Verstappen now 2 seconds behind the leading pair. Sergio Perez still looking at the back of Liam Lawson. He's going to have a go at Liam Lawson down towards turn 1. Super late lunge from Sergio Perez, and it's a beautiful one. Gets right onto the apex of the corner and gets that position from Liam Lawson. Sergio Perez in the main Red Bull versus the sister RB gets that move done, and Liam Lawson can't fight back down towards turn 4. Final 5 laps left to go, and still some point scoring places up for grabs. Also been a little bit of a swap around. Lewis Hamilton has found some pace inside of the Mercedes car. We haven't really talked with the guys outside of the top 10, but Lewis Hamilton has been making some moves. He's moved past Colapinto, Hulkenberg, and Hamilton up to 12th place. Alex Albon has also managed to move his Williams car past the 2 Hasses. So the Hasses really struggling on this longer stint on the medium compound tyre. Just doesn't seem to have the pace in this kind of situation, does the Haas car. But Lewis Hamilton putting in some really solid moves on the guys around. You can see Nico Hulkenberg really struggling on these tyres because he is falling down the order now. Is Nico Hulkenberg down into 17th place. And Ollie Behrman is also falling down. Oh, Hulkenberg, there's a problem here. There's a problem. There is a yellow flag in Sector 2. I think it's Nico Hulkenberg might have come to a stop, or at least he has on my graphic. That might be Nico Hulkenberg out of the race. And I'll tell you what, if there's a safety car now, that really does mess up the last lap swap for McLaren, because we might finish under safety car conditions. There is a Haas car. I think he's just rolling the car into a position where it's off the racing line. But Nico Hulkenberg's car has come to effectively a stop. Just around turn 10 towards turn 11. So yellow flags in that sector. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri then still in the opposite order to what McLaren would really want, with Norris behind Piastri. Are they finally going to make the switch now? They are indeed. Piastri on the radio told to swap positions, and down towards turn 4, they get that done. Piastri releases Lando Norris into the lead of the race, has also put Verstappen within DRS range of Piastri. So Lando Norris has got to hold on and help his teammate out here a little bit, keeping Piastri inside DRS range to keep him ahead of Max Verstappen, because otherwise that swap was kind of pointless. With the point scoring places, Piastri given a thanks on the radio. There is Nico Hulkenberg moving out of his Haas car. And I'll tell you what, Verstappen is right under the rear wing of Oscar Piastri. Okay, yes, McLaren got that swap done, but now Max Verstappen is under... Oh, and there's a virtual safety car. Virtual safety car. And that might just save McLaren's blushes there a little bit, because Verstappen, I feel like, was very much in the mood there to go for an overtake on Piastri. So that swap between Norris and Piastri would have been pointless, because obviously the reason they do that swap is so that Norris gains 2 points on Verstappen rather than 1. If Verstappen would have gained that position on Piastri, he'd have still only just been 1 point behind Lando Norris. But virtual safety car is now out. 2 laps left to go. I can't see that car being moved within the 2 laps. So I think this is going to be how we end this Brazilian sprint race. Lando Norris from Oscar Piastri at the top of the timing sheets. Norris then moving ahead of Piastri just before that virtual safety car dropped. So McLaren getting it done just in time. Verstappen in third has been very, very swift in that Red Bull car. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz fourth and fifth for Ferrari. George Russell in sixth place for Mercedes. And Mercedes does just look like the fourth fastest car here this weekend, unfortunately for them. Gasly has been able to hold on to seventh place. Ooh. And Max Verstappen talking about whether Piastri is driving slow on purpose to obviously give Lando Norris a little bit of a gap to Verstappen. And it's looking unlikely that we'll get another lap. Hulkenberg's car is still out on the racetrack. And could see a little bit of chaos, to be fair, if we were to get a final lap of racing. But Norris and Piastri just coming around the final corner. And it does look like we're going to come into the final lap of this sprint under virtual safety car conditions. So Max Verstappen, no opportunity to overtake down towards turn 1 or turn 4 by the looks of things. And they're usually the positions that you'd go for it. Where was I? Pierre Gasly, yeah, still running in 7th place. Done really, really well inside that Alpine car to hold off. Oh, virtual safety car ending. Just as we go down towards turn 4, Verstappen's going to try and make a move on Piastri. And Piastri just about holds on to the position. Goodness me, they dropped the safety car just literally as Verstappen and Piastri were going down towards turn 4. Verstappen tried to just catch Piastri out there by jumping in front of the young driver at McLaren. But Lando Norris still leads, and Piastri has been able to hold on to that second spot. Track was cleared just in time, and maybe, just maybe, there's an opportunity for Sergio Perez to get in front of Pierre Gasly. I was just giving Gasly praise for the fact that he has held on to 7th place, but Sergio Perez is right there behind him. We are going to see Lando Norris take the win here, though. Coming around the final corner, Lando Norris goes across the line to take the sprint victory. Oscar Piastri comes home second, Verstappen in third. It's a 1-2 for McLaren. And then the two Ferrari cars in 4th and 5th with Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. George Russell comes home in 6th place. Pierre Gasly is going to hold off Sergio Perez just at the line to get the final point scoring places. You can see Sergio Perez was really going for it there. Sets the fastest lap of the sprint race as he tries to catch up to the back of Pierre Gasly, but not yet doing for Sergio Perez. Liam Lawson also finishes just outside of the point scoring places in 9th. Alex Albon managed to get all the way back up to 10th after the two Haas cars completely fell off a performance cliff and the tyres just started to fall away from them. Lewis Hamilton got up into 11th place. Franco Colapinto 12th. Esteban Ocon 13th. Ollie Behrman dropped all the way down to 14th place. That's something that the Haas team are going to have a look at before the Grand Prix tomorrow, because they had some real pace at the beginning, and then as soon as those tyres started to fall away, the Haas's also drifted away from the point scoring places. Ollie Behrman in 14th. We've got Yuki Tsunoda 15th, Bottas 16th, 17th was Zhou Guanyu, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, the two slowest cars out on track, in 18th and 19th place, and one retirement in Nico Hulkenberg. Retired just a few laps before the end of that sprint after just a power unit problem for Nico Hulkenberg. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like, subscribe, that'd be absolutely amazing. We are going to be back live once again for the full qualifying later on today. So don't miss that, because the live qualifying session, especially with Max Verstappen looking as in form as he was in this sprint race, could get very tasty indeed and set a really, really interesting grid for tomorrow's full Grand Prix, which we're live for again. But thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you later on today for qualifying.